Teacher bestie, and happy new year. Since it's the new year season, I wanted to do something special. Over the weekend, I recorded a 3-part training on She is Worthy in the new year. It was a 3-day event, and I really enjoyed part 3. I thought it was very valuable and honestly one of the best live events I've ever done. So I thought I would share it here with you. So if you want to tune into this, you like what you hear about creating goals in the new year, and you want to tune into part 1 and part 2, make sure to go to the link down in the description down below so you can watch those before I take it down to make it a bonus in the Present Teacher Circle. Otherwise, I hope you have a fabulous new year, and I'll talk to you soon. Okay, perfect. If you are just joining us, so drop a comment in the chat on what your intention is, an emoji on what your intention is for the new year. The chat. Awesome. I see healthy. I see weights, maybe getting healthy. I see sleep, rest. I see the sun, maybe relaxing more. Awesome. All right. So with that being said, I'm going to get a sip of my water as more people come in. All right. Along the way on this live, and then if you're catching the replay, you can always ask a question in the community. But feel free to drop your questions in the chat room, and then towards the end of this live, I'll go back and answer any questions that I might have missed towards the end. So make sure to do that. And if you're catching the replay, then you can always just ask a question in the community. All right. So with that being said, let's dive in. So today we're talking about stepping into the vision of the impactful teacher, aka letting it be easy. So in society, there's this idea that achieving your goals has to be hard, that, to start when you're starting as a student teacher, graduating has to be hard. When you start as a new teacher in the education world, teaching has to be hard for the first couple of years. We see teachers online talking about how hard it is. We hear it from our peers that in order to be a good teacher, you're going to struggle the first couple of years. And it's kind of this unspoken expectation that that's the way it has to be. We see teachers online who are quitting. And while I'm not invalidating those by any means, they're those people's experiences, there's this common understanding that teaching has to be hard. There's also this idea that classroom management has to be hard, especially as a new teacher. We see that, you weren't taught classroom management as a student teacher, so you're going to struggle, or, you're new, so you must struggle with classroom management, or you're probably struggling because X, Y, Z. And so again, there's this unspoken expectation that in order to be a teacher, you have to start teacher and have to struggle. You have to struggle with classroom management. And the third thing is that you have to work a lot of hours to be a good teacher. I remember particularly when I was a new teacher at my first district, I admired this teacher down the hallway because she was the teacher who was always leaving at contract time, and she never brought work home. And she was always weeks ahead. She was caught up in all of her professional development. But at the same time, she really loved her kids. She was always there for them. She was a huge advocate. She was there in the moment, just sitting. I could see the impact my kids had when they just worked with her for an hour on how big of an impact this woman had. And I remember watching her leave one day, and my other kindergarten teacher who was down the hallway, she whispered under her breath as she was watching, saw me watching that teacher leave. And she's like, clearly she doesn't care about her kids like we do. And I remember thinking, so finding a way to make teaching easier is bad. And so I started telling myself the story that, in order to be a good teacher, you have to work hard. You have to work a lot of hours. You have to be dedicated. Otherwise, you're not going to make it as a teacher. There's also this idea that starting a business has to be hard. Your first year, you're going to struggle. Your first year, you're not going to make anything. Selling to teachers has to be hard if you're wanting to do that. Starting a TBT business has to be hard, or selling courses online for teachers has to be hard. What teachers are going to buy courses online? Why would you start a YouTube channel? Nobody's going to listen. And another thing that we're often told is being healthy has to be hard, that as a teacher, you're not going to have time to dedicate towards yourself. So taking care of yourself has to be hard, and being healthy has to be hard. And the question becomes, what if it were easy? What if none of this was true and there was another way to figure out how to make teaching be easy for us? And if it were easy, if starting as a new teacher was easy, if classroom management was easy, if working less was easy, if starting a business was easy, if being healthy was easy, what would it look like? And what would that look like to you? What would you spend your days doing? And just kind of this decision of deciding that you're ready to see things differently. And that might be the story for the rest of the population or the rest of the world, but that's not your story and that's not your truth. And this kind of deciding factor of, you know what, no, I'm done. I'm ready to move on. I'm ready to let this be easy. And all the things that I just mentioned are all things that I personally allowed to be hard, that I listened to the stories that society was saying that it had to be hard. And I think it's funny that I'm actually teaching this lesson on letting it be easy, because I struggled so much with letting it be easy in the beginning. And it wasn't until I had this I'm done moments throughout my journey that allowed me to say, you know what, I'm ready to see things differently. How can I see things differently? If it were easy, what would it look like? So with all that being said, talking about what society might be telling us has to be hard, let's start shifting from this has to be hard to it gets to be easy, and letting it be easy and deciding it gets to be easy. So the first example I gave you is that teaching has to be hard. So and you might have heard this story, when I was a kindergarten teacher, it was my first year of teaching. And I watched my little kindergartners graduate, and I watched them cross the gymnasium with their diplomas in hand, super excited. I started crying, and I was crying because I was proud of them, but mostly I was crying because I felt like a failure. I felt like I had failed my kids, and I had failed myself, and I had failed that 5-year-old little girl inside me who really wanted to be a teacher. And because I was so caught up in trying to work and be a good teacher that I had missed the whole point of teaching. I was so busy chasing to-do lists, getting things done, lesson planning, getting assessments done, and all this, that I felt like I blinked and I didn't actually it was the longest year of my life and the quickest at the same time when that moment came, because I felt like I had failed them. And I wasn't there in the moment to actually teach my kids. And I felt like I was so busy doing a million things that all I just wanted to do was actually sit down and teach without a million things going on in the background. And so that was my I'm done factor. That's the decision I made, like, let this be easy. And I'm done. I'm ready to find a different way, let it be easy. And I had actually decided that moment, if I couldn't find a way to let it be easy, that I would quit teaching altogether, which was really sad because I had graduated with my master's, fully dedicated to this career, expecting it to be easier than it actually was. And so I decided at that point that I would figure out a way to let it be easy. And at first, I did what everyone does. I went online, I followed what the expert said you have to do step by step by step, and it didn't work for me. And I was thinking, what is wrong with me? Why can't I get this right? Why is none of this working? And it wasn't until I decided, you know what, forget what the experts say. I want to do what I want to do, just as an experiment, and see if it actually works. And that's when I created my personal schedule that allows me to let teaching be easy. I started mapping my energy throughout the week, and I started noticing, okay, on Mondays, I have 100% mental brain capacity. By like Tuesdays, it's 85, Wednesdays, it's 60, Thursdays it's 40, and then Fridays it's like 0. I don't want to do anything. If I could create a schedule that allowed me to have Fridays as a catch-up day or just kind of chill, I would love that. And so after I started thinking, well, what do I want to do? And it's not what should I do? What do the experts say? What does this expert say? What does that person say I have to do? It's what do I want to do? What has me thinking, oh yeah, that's a great idea. I really want to try that and get excited because I want to do it, not because I have to do it. And so after I had mapped out that my energy at the beginning of the week is here, and then it kind of slows down throughout the week, I decided, okay, I'm going to list out all the things I need to do as a teacher on a weekly basis, and I'm going to assign how much of a mental capacity it takes for me, and I'm going to assign the things that take more mental work first, and I'm going to taper them down to the things that are the easiest to do that require little to no brain power. So instead of having a to-do list that was full of lesson planning that day, prepping that day, grading that day, responding to families that day, writing the newsletter, the update for that day, I went from having a to-do list of 15 plus things to having a to-do list of one single thing. And it felt way better energetically because I was able to realize, okay, today I have one thing to do today. And in case you're curious what my schedule ended up looking like, is Mondays were my lesson planning days. Lesson planning is something that takes a lot of mental capacity for me because I have to look at, the holes in the curriculum, find my supplemental stuff, and then piece it all together and differentiate and plan small groups and stuff like that. So I would sit down on Mondays on my prep for 45 minutes and plan out as far out as I could. Tuesdays, I would take everything that I had lesson planned the day before and I would prep them for that upcoming week. Wednesdays, I would do homework if I decided to do homework that year, and communication. So like weekly newsletters, I would, if I had like emails from parents or families that I fell behind, if I had PD from admin that I need to catch up on, that's when I would start doing that. And then on Thursdays, I would grade. Grading didn't require a lot of energy. So I would sit down and I would grade everything that we had done that week at that point. That way I could give it back to my kids on Friday and they could take it home in their Monday folders. On Fridays were my catch-up days because I was able to plan out and prep out and grade and communicate consistently and sometimes ahead of time. It made Fridays be my catch-up day. If I didn't have a prep on Monday, I just shifted everything down. If I did get caught up and I got everything done, I got to just relax. And that is such against what the norm is. Other people's norms are in teaching, that you get to relax as a teacher. But I decided that in order to be my best self and show up in the moment and be the impactful teacher I wanted to be, that's what I need to do. I need to allow myself space to just breathe and coast. And this whole idea of being the impactful teacher, one of the first steps you need to get through, or what I recommend that you do, you don't have to do anything. What I recommend you doing, I want to rephrase that, is getting clear on what does the impactful teacher look like? What does the impactful woman look like to you? Is she the woman that's chasing a to-do list of 20 plus things? Or is she the woman that has one main thing to do today? She gets it done and she's able to show up in the moment and be there for her students and be there for her family and friends and herself before and after school because she's not caught up in her career. She's able to have both. And what does a day like that look like to you? And we're going to talk more about that later. But this whole idea that teaching has to be hard, once you give yourself permission to treat it like an experiment, I like to think of it as creating your very own version of a chocolate chip cookie recipe. You can go online and find some and you can start tweaking it for sure. But you're not going to know until you open yourself up to experimenting. And then once you figure out what works best for you and your particular way of what you like in a chocolate chip cookie recipe, you can repeat that over and over again. And that's what you're doing. You are using inspiration from others, not doing what you have to do, but it's a switch in mindset from I have to do what the experts say online to I'm going to use them as inspiration, separate my self-worth from what I'm seeing online because it has no reflect on my impact as a teacher. And I'm going to take the strategies that excite me the most and use them in my life. The whole schedule I just gave you, you do not have to do step by step by step. I'm just showing you what works best for me in hopes that it might spark some inspiration for you. And you might think, oh my goodness, that sounds great. I want to do that. And you can start tweaking what I give you as inspiration and make it your own and make your very own version of a chocolate chip cookie recipe. So this whole decision of, teaching has to be hard, deciding that you get to let it be easy and doing what you want to do to create that life versus what you have to do, and creating your own schedule in that way can really help you go a long way. So the whole idea is, I went from this mindset that teaching has to be hard to reminding myself that that might be the story for other people, but I refuse to let that be a story for me, and I am unavailable for that anymore. I allow it. Teaching doesn't have to be hard. Teaching gets to be easy. And you are meant to be a teacher, and every day teaching gets to be easier and easier for you, and other teachers get to ask you how you make teaching so easy, and you eventually get to be that impactful teacher that other teachers are stopping in the hallway. True story. Once I had figured out my perfect chocolate chip cookie recipe on what worked best for me, I started getting people started stopping me in the hallways, my coworkers, asking me what my secret was. And that's the whole reason I started sharing online, is because I was getting asked repeatedly, how are you making this easy? What's your secret? And I didn't want this to be a secret, because I was that same teacher who would struggle and wonder, what's the secret of that teacher next door? I don't want there to be a secret. There is no secret. The secret is you do what you want to do and you create your very own schedule. So with that being said, teaching gets to be easy, and you get to be that teacher eventually that other teachers get to ask, what's your secret? How are you doing this? And you can share, hey, this is what I'm doing. Feel free to take whatever you want and use it as inspiration in your classroom. So that's the first thing, is letting it be easy. Teaching doesn't have to be hard. Teaching can be easy. The second area I talked about in regards to letting it be easy is maybe classroom management has been a struggle for you. True story, and I know I mentioned this in an earlier day. I had my principal stop me in my classroom and tell me that I had one of the hardest classes in the school and how she could support me. And while, yes, there for a while, I was thinking, oh, it's just the class, it's the class. Eventually, I realized, you know what? It's actually me. I don't know how to respond to these kids. I'm doing all the things that I see online and all the things my mentor teacher or the teacher next door is telling me to do, but they're not working. And I decided that I need to find something differently. And this is something I talk more about inside the Impactful Teacher Bundle and inside the Present Teacher Circle. I actually show you and take you step by step what I personally use in my classroom to help my students actually manage the behaviors in the class and automatically follow expectations, to the point where my students rotate from transition from activity to activity, to center, to line up, to sit down, all of that without me doing anything. I can sit back, sip my coffee, and work with my kids in a small group without doing anything. And that was my version of the impactful teacher. I asked myself, what does the impactful teacher look like in the world of classroom management? What does her classroom look like? And I wrote down, what do I want my classroom to look like? Okay, now I know where I'm going. I'm going to start taking small actions throughout the day and throughout the year that feel good to me and that excite me, that are going to help me get there, because I'm clear on what kind of environment I want. So, like I said, I talk more about what I do step by step in my classroom, so you can use that as inspiration. But back in the day when I was struggling with classroom management, I was literally doing all the things. I would spend hours on YouTube. I would ask my coworkers for help. I'd ask for advice. And I used clip charts. I went from clip charts to desk pets to taking away recess to all the things you were supposed to do for good classroom management. And then at some point I decided I don't like this, and there has to be another way, because I feel like I'm trying all these strategies and none of them are working. And that's when I started asking myself, if this could be easy, what would it look like? And that's when I decided, and I started slowly piecing together. I would go throughout my day and I would think, okay, I really don't like the clip chart. I need something else. and something else would come up. But I created a classroom management system, or my very own version of a chocolate chip cookie recipe that worked for me and my personal teaching style. I can share you step by step what I do. And you can definitely use that as inspo if you feel like I have a lot of great ideas and you feel like I'm aligned like I do in the Present Teacher Circle. But you don't have to do everything step by step by step like I do, because the reality is we're all different. We all have different versions and different visions of what the impactful teacher is. And so it's a starting point on, here's what I do, take what you want and leave the rest, and don't feel like your worth as a teacher is tied to whether or not this is successful for you. Use it as a starting point and permission to experiment in the classroom and find out what's good for you and what works for you and your kids. So again, I cover this in depth inside TPTC, but I didn't like clip charts, so I used Positive Notes Home instead. I didn't love taking away recess. I felt like it wasn't right. Let's go back to the clip charts. What I noticed for me, I was using clip charts because my whole school were using them. The people who I taught under student teaching were using them. I didn't like them because every time my students would clip down, they would completely shut down and dysregulate. And it would take forever for me to bring them back up, to the point where sometimes they would never get back up and they continued to make an inappropriate or a negative choice over and over again. Or a disruptive choice, I want to rephrase that, disruptive behavior throughout the day, because they were already on that spiral and it was really hard to reset them. And I tried not to clip down very often, but what I noticed is when they did, it was hard for them to learn. And oftentimes my students didn't learn the lesson. If I had them clip down, their immediate reaction is, I'm a bad student. Their reaction is that, hey, I made a mess in the bathroom, I get to go clean it up. There was a disconnect between, they took whatever I had them clip up and down internally, instead of realizing that the decisions are external and you can shift those and you can become and make better choices. And I can give you the skills to make better choices in the future. So I decided to do that, and I didn't love that. So instead, I ran into Super Improver Walls. I loved sending positive notes home, and I loved shouting out my students who were doing positive things. So I relied on that instead to kind of gauge where my students were at. I would rely heavily on positive reinforcement because that's the environment I wanted to create, versus clipping up and clipping down. Another example is, I didn't love taking away recess. I felt like the students I was taking away recess from, even though my coworkers told me I really should take away recess, was a majority of the time, those students who needed that break the most were the ones that were taken away. If you think about it, and I tried really hard to set a timer, especially at the primary age, to get my students to move a lot, because I feel like a lot of disruptive behavior sometimes stems from sitting down and focusing too long. Even then, those students need that break the most. They need to use those fine motor skills. They need to be able to appropriately put that energy in a positive way, and taking away recess takes away their opportunity to do that. And oftentimes those students with that pent up energy are just going to bring it into your classroom, which is going to lead to more disruptive behavior, at least what I noticed in my class. So as far as that goes, I stopped relying on that, and I relied heavily on my classroom procedures instead. I didn't love that my students were cutting into my lessons because transitions were taking too long, or a majority of my disruptive behavior would happen during transitions. So I decided to use music instead. I taught my kids to transition from one thing to another. We practiced over and over again. And it got to the point where my students were trained, hey, when this song comes on, I do this. When this song comes on, I do this. And I got to the point where I had a student job where the students would transition each other and I didn't do anything. I could sit back, like I said, work in my small groups and have my teacher helper completely run the classroom just by playing music, and I didn't have to do a thing. I didn't love having to keep on top of my students on their behavior and making sure they were on task. So after I had really strong classroom procedures and they had followed the expectations to the point where they were habits, I started using classroom jobs to help them stay on track of their behavior and make sure they were making positive choices in class. And so the whole question is, if this were easy, if classroom management got to be easy for you, what would it look like? for me, my answer to this question is I want to be able to sit back and sip my coffee without reheating it 20, 30 times and teach a small group without ever having to worry about whether or not my students are getting off task or not. I have procedures in place, I have rules in place, I have positive reinforcement in place, and I have jobs in place that help my students stay on track, and they know what the expectations are, and they know the natural consequences that are going to occur if they don't follow the expectations. So it gets to be easy. Managing a classroom gets to be easy for you. It gets to be fun. I personally love getting better and better at classroom management every year and finding a new strategy that I want to incorporate and using it that year and seeing how much I've grown from that first year where I was told I had the most worst behaved class ever to now being asked to train other teachers in my district on classroom management. It gets to be easy. It's actually really fun. And I love being able to create a classroom environment that I love and feels effortless. I love figuring out another way to have my students run the classroom without me saying a thing and feeling like they are responsible for their own learning and empowering them to do so. So if it got to be easy, what would it look like? What would managing your classroom look like? So the third area we talked about letting it be easy and a goal you might have is maybe you're working a lot of hours in order to be a good teacher. You are coming in the morning, staying late, bringing work home late. Your weekends are non-existent. Maybe over breaks you're guilting yourself because you're not spending the entire time working. And that's how I was when I started my journey. I was sick of always missing out on my friends and families. I was tired of spending my entire break either sleeping because I was so mentally and emotionally exhausted or working. And I decided that enough was enough. So with that, I decided to start letting planning out weeks ahead be easy. And I decided, okay, there has to be a way to do this in an easy way. And at first that felt daunting. At first I only started with 1 week out. And then eventually I worked my way up to 2 weeks, then 3 weeks, then 4 weeks. But the whole point is during those Mondays when I would sit down and I would plan everything out, I would focus on planning just the first week out. After that, I'd do 2 weeks out, then 3 weeks out, 4 weeks out. And I decided to let it be easy. And I never had to worry about whether or not I had a sub because everything was planned and prepped ready. I didn't have to worry about missing a prep because of a meeting or an assembly or a holiday or anything like that, or the printer going out because I need copies for that day, because I was prepped out weeks ahead of time and it didn't matter. So I still remember when it was about a year after I had decided of letting it be easy. We got off at 3:15 at my old school, and I only lived 5 minutes away, so I was home by 3:20. And it was a Thursday, and I remember sitting there watching. I had my little dog Coda. He came to the window as I was sitting there in my parked car, and I was thinking, "Oh my God, I did it! I did it! I haven't stayed late once this week, and I am weeks ahead." And the feeling you have when it's the freedom and the space, and it's freedom to be yourself and freedom to be a passionate teacher, a freedom to be excited and just free, and this like ease and flow, and like I am free to do whatever I want. I'm free to be that teacher I know I'm meant to be. And it's just this whole I forgot what it used to be like, and just realizing that this was my new norm now. It's such an amazing feeling. And like I said, I had teachers stopping me in the hallway asking how I was doing it, but I remember thinking to myself, I'm barely working. I'm doing one thing on my prep. I'm staying on top of PDs. I'm staying on top of communication. I'm getting praise from my admin now. What is happening? And the reality is I was not being a good teacher despite me finding a way to be easy. I was becoming the impactful teacher I was meant to be because I was letting it be easy. So working gets to be easy. You get to find the schedule that works for you. You get to figure out a way to plan out weeks ahead if that's what you want to do. And that's the kind of life or what the impactful teacher means to you. And that's what she's doing. Then go for it. That means you are meant to find figure out your way of doing that this year. So do it. I want to invite you. Remember, your desires are safe guidance. We talked about this on the first 2 days. Anything that you desire and excite you means that there's a future version of you that's already done that, or that is a possibility. All you have to do is decide and take action. That's your only job, is decide, take action, and remind yourself the feelings of being that impactful teacher, what it's going to feel like on the other side, and you will get there. It might take time. You might, try some things, they don't work, or you might decide everything I try works for me, or I only try things that are going to work, and they do. And it gets to be that easy. So let's talk about starting a business, because maybe you have a desire to start a business in the new year, but you're being told you don't have the time, or that's going to be hard, or, why bother? You're going to struggle the first couple of years to make an income anyway. I remember when I started back in 2020, my business coach that I had hired at the time told me, don't bother helping new teachers because you are never going to be successful. They're never going to pay for courses. They're never going to pay for TPT products. They're never going to hire you for one-on-one coaching. And my reaction, I listened for a couple of years, but my reaction now, if I could go back and listen and talk to my younger self, I would say complete baloney. I decided to stop doing things I didn't want to do. I decided I had reached a point in my business where I was doing all the things and it wasn't working. I felt stuck, and I decided, you know what? Forget it. I'm going to do things I want to do, and I'm going to see if it works, because I'm tired of listening to all these experts and doing what I'm supposed to do only to find out that they don't work. And so I started following what I wanted to do. They were saying you have to have a podcast, have a YouTube, be on Pinterest, be on Instagram, be on TikTok, be on all the social media all at the same time. And I remember being so incredibly exhausted, and blog and email of trying to do all these things. And I decided, what do I want to do? And I realized, you know what? I really love podcasting, because at the time I was scared to show my face. And I decided podcasting. I love podcasting. I love sitting here and talking to the mic and talking to my friends and just sharing my thoughts. And then it got to the point a couple of years later, I'm like, you know what? I kind of want to start recording video. I want to actually look at the camera and feel like I have actual genuine connection with the people I'm talking to on a deeper level. So I started doing both, and I just started slowly adding in. And the results, I doubled my audience once I started listening to myself. I started attracting and getting more teachers who were resonating with what I had to say, who were joining in not only my free stuff, but my paid stuff. I made more than I ever had. And it's all because I started doing things that I wanted to do. I started creating TPT resources that I wanted to do after I took like a 2 or 3 year break, because I had created all the things I should do. I decided to do the things I wanted to do. And they have sold way better than the stuff I had to do and had to make back in the day. I decided to create the courses I was excited about. I decided to create the coaching package that, again, my business coach back in the day and other teachers told me, don't bother. Nobody's going to buy, join your coaching packages. People did. And so now I have one-on-one clients that I love working with. And people told me that wasn't going to be possible with the audience I was after and who I wanted to help. And my reaction to it is complete BS. That's not true. That's not true at all. It's not true. If you have a desire to help those people, you are meant to help those people. Forget what other people have to say about it. In fact, don't listen to them. I stopped sharing my ideas honestly with people that just didn't get my vision. And my energy and my mental health has been so much better because I do what I want to do now. I do what I'm excited about now. And it comes off way better than the stuff I was forcing myself to do back in the day. So it gets to be easy to start your business. All you have to do is ask yourself, what do you want to work on today? What do you want to work on? What do you want to do? What do you want to launch next? What do you want to start sharing free on? And you show up and you do the work. And the thing is, you actually do it because you're excited and it's fun. Things that used to take me weeks back in the day take me an hour now because I do them when I'm excited about. I record YouTube videos when I'm excited about them. I write out emails when I'm excited about them. I go live when I'm excited about them, not because I have to do it or someone told me to do it. I do it because I want to. And there's less pressure when you do what you want to do versus what you have to do. And you'll make more and be more successful and step into that version of who you want to be and that impactful teacher, whether that's in teaching or out of teaching, when you start doing more and focusing more on what you want to do and showing up and doing it versus what you have to do and you're supposed to do that way and when you're supposed to do it. So with that being said, I trust myself deeply now to show up and do the work. Before I'm thinking, oh, but if I don't force myself to do it, I won't do it. That's not true. When I gave myself space to do and work when I wanted to work, I still posted YouTube videos for the last year practically every week. I still sent out weekly newsletters every week. I let go of blog posts because I wasn't excited about them, but my podcast came out every week. I shared on social media every week, not because I had to, but because I just naturally wanted to and I was excited to do those things. I still created new products and courses and programs and TPT resources, not because I had to, because I wanted to. So giving yourself that permission gives you that creativity to do what you want to do, and it comes off way better when you're more invested in it and you want to do it versus you're sitting down and forcing yourself to have to do it. I remember the first time I decided to write, emails about a program that I was opening, and I wrote them when I wanted to. They came off way better, so much so that I had people writing me back, thanking me for those emails where I mentioned my program because they got so much value out of it. And I did that, and I had wrote those emails in less than an hour because the words were just flowing out of me, versus back in the day when I would have launched a similar program or opened enrollment to another program like that, and I forced myself to sit there and write those emails. They would have taken me days to do, versus just saying, ooh, I feel like writing a sales, some emails about what I'm opening later. I'm going to do them now. They came off way better. So if I could go back and tell newer teacher business self what to do, I would say trust yourself more, because when you work from a place of ease and flow, things come off way easier than when you sit down and you force yourself to do something. So another thing that we had talked about in regards to, letting it be hard and letting it be easy is maybe being a healthy teacher. You've heard is going to be hard. Taking care of yourself is going hard. Going to the gym has to be hard. It has to be hard. And again, I'm going to say baloney to that. It gets to be easy and it gets to be fun. So here's a fun story for you. A couple months back, I started realizing that I just didn't feel right. I felt like I was inflammation was up. I had a hard time sleeping. I would get like this burst of energy before bed and I would wake up a lot. And I just didn't feel like myself. And so I had this idea like, I kind of want to cut out gluten. Mind you, I love bread. I am a pizza and pasta girl. I could eat those every day and be happy as ever. And I was thinking, you know what? I kind of feel like I want to cut out gluten. So I cut out gluten in October. And then I had the desire, you know what? Whenever I eat dairy, it kind of doesn't make me feel the best. I'm not sure if I'm lactose intolerant, but I just feel bloated and kind of bleh. So I'm going to find dairy alternatives. Again, I love my cheese. I love my milk. I love gluten. I love bread. I love pasta. But I have this weird desire to cut it out. So and then I have this desire, you know what, I'm going to rest more. I'm going to meditate more. I'm going to stop running because I was training for a 5K marathon. I'm going to stop doing that because I just feel like bleh about it. And I'm going to start walking instead. I'm going to start doing like heavy lifting. And the results were insane. In October, I lost 15 pounds by doing what I wanted to do. And when I had a weird idea that I should be doing, like I wanted to do it, and that's like, oh, that's a good idea. I'm going to try this and see if it works. I lost 15 pounds in a month, whereas I had done the whole cutting and counting your macros and all the things, and I was actually gaining weight. So along this time, I decided to hire a functional nutritionist, and she did what's called a Dutch test. I might be ranting here, but it's a dry urine analysis essentially, and it tests your hormones throughout the month. And The reason I was inflamed was actually my adrenals were shot. Essentially, my body was in so much stress, even though I felt perfectly fine apart from those symptoms I told you about. They were completely shot. And so my body wasn't able to absorb the nutrients I was giving it in food. And things like exercising, gluten, and dairy were actually making it worse. So I found out that the stuff I had been doing months prior to hiring my nutritionist were actually the things she wanted me to be doing. And so it was amazing to see that I'm not an expert at all in nutrition. I'm not an expert at like healthy living or anything like that. I just did what I desired to do, and it was getting me to the right path, even without me knowing a thing about health and naturopathic medicine or anything like that. And so, with that being said, when you show up and you ask yourself and you listen to what you want to do, and you're very clear on where you want to go, you'll find yourself naturally making decisions that are aligned with that future version of yourself that you want to be. So, with that being said, it gets to be easy to be healthy. If it were easy, what would it look like? If you got to be the most healthy version of you in the upcoming year, what would that look like? What would you be doing? How would you feel? Would you weigh a certain weight? Would you be lifting a certain weight? Would you be showing up a certain way? Would you get rid of some fat in certain areas? What would that look like to you? And then start taking action. So, today I feel like doing this. I'm going to do this. So, last one that I want to talk about in regards to letting it be easy is if you are looking at switching districts, or if you are looking at, sorry, my back hurts. If you are looking at getting your first job, or you're looking at getting a new job, this whole idea that getting a job as a new teacher has to be hard. This was something I definitely heard when I started teaching, especially as a student teacher, is that, nobody hires student teachers. Student teachers aren't, nobody's going to want to hire you. And if you're in your first 5 years, people aren't going to want to invest in you. They're going to want to go for veteran teachers. And people said you're going to struggle. I was going to struggle for finding a position. I decided, you know what? That's not true. I decide that it gets to be easy. If it were easy, it would look like districts asking to work with me during an interview. It would look like districts calling out every single one that I apply for that's aligned with me and is going to be a good fit, calling me back for an interview. And so I decided that wasn't going to be my story. I decided to see things differently. This or something better. God, angels, the universe. I decide that, you know what? I'm going to get a job and it's going to be super easy. So that's what I told myself. And sure enough, I applied to like 5 positions. 2 of them called me back. I had an interview. I flew out from Oregon to New Mexico to 2 of them to have the interview. Both interviews offered me the job during the interview, just like I had wanted. And so this whole idea that, finding a position has to be hard, it gets to be easy. You can decide that you only apply for positions that you feel are going to be truly aligned with you, and only the ones that are going to be a really good fit for you are going to call you back for an interview. And the ones that you feel really good about are going to offer you the job on the spot, or they're going to call you back within 24 hours of your interview. You get to decide what that's like. So interviewing gets to be easy. Interviewing gets to be fun. I like to think of interviewing as having a coffee chat with a future friend. Just seeing if we're a mutual and if we're on the same page and if it's going to be a good relation for both of us versus just me working for them. I want to see whether or not they're a good fit for me just as much as I'm a good fit for them. And so interviewing gets to be easy. It gets to be fun. I like learning about different districts and kind of seeing behind the scenes how they run things and seeing what questions they ask me. And I love asking questions to them and seeing if I have any that kind of surprise them and seeing whether or not their answers are aligned to what kind of district I want to work for or not. So interviewing gets to be easy. Interviewing gets to be fun. So we talked about a lot in regards to letting it be easy and some goals you might have for the new year. So let's talk about how do you actually step into the impactful teacher version of yourself? How do you actually take action? So the first thing, and notice I might be summarizing these 3 days. If you haven't watched part 1 and part 2, definitely go back and rewatch them. But the first thing, what do you want? What do you want? If you couldn't mess it up, if no one could be mad at you, if, anything you tried was guaranteed to work, what would you do? What would you want this year? What would the impactful teacher version of you look like? If you could close your eyes and imagine yourself 1 year from now, what does your life look like? Are you working at your dream district? Did you start a business that's, paying enough to pay maybe like your water bill or maybe your mortgage bill? Are you sharing online and having a thriving community? Are you like completely 180 how you manage your classroom and now it's easy and fun? What does that look like to you? What do you want? What do you want at the end of this year? What do you want to work towards? What's your version and your definition of the impactful teacher? What does that look like to you? And remember, don't be afraid to dream about this. What does your perfect chocolate chip cookie recipe look like? Is it crunchy? Is it chewy? Is there a lot of chocolate chips? Is there not a lot of chocolate chips? This is your life. You get to create it, and you are worthy of the life you create, and you are worthy because you are. So after you've decided what you want, remember you are worthy of your goals because you are. You wouldn't have a desire to do something if you weren't meant to do it. I wouldn't have had a desire to make teaching easy and to work at districts I was aligned at if in the future I didn't get an opportunity to work for districts I was aligned with. I wouldn't have a desire to start coaching one-on-one clients if there wasn't a future version of me that was teaching and coaching teachers online. I wouldn't have desire to start a YouTube channel and imagine having hundreds of people subscribe in the first year if there wasn't a future version of me that had over 400 subscribers in the first year. You're worthy because you are. Your goals and your desires were given to you for a reason. And I wouldn't have desire to heal my body naturally in the last couple months if there wasn't a future version of me that lost 15 pounds, has more energy than ever, is, despite not drinking any more caffeine. I wouldn't have had a desire to find a way to do that if there wasn't a version of a future version of me that already did that. So with that being said, you are worthy because you are. I fully believe in you. You are worthy of your goals because you are. And whatever you desire to do, you can do it. If the people around you can do it, you can do it. The only difference between the people you see, the experts online, versus them versus you is they've had more time to figure out what works for them. They've had more time dedicated to whatever you're trying to achieve to figure out their own chocolate chip cookie recipe to accomplish that. So the third thing is reaching your goals benefits the world. I'm going to repeat that again. How does reaching your goal benefit the world? Deciding to find a way to make teaching easy benefited the world because I was able to show up more fully and more present for my students in the moment and create a deeper impact with them and help them teach more or help teach more deeply those skills that my students need during their time with me. And that's benefiting the world because now they're able to show up as better adults and have a brighter future because I was able to be in the moment with them instead of chasing a long to-do list. I benefited the world because I started a business to help new and first-year teachers, and now I get to hear from all these teachers that decided to incorporate some of the things I'm talking about, and some of them are on extended maternity leave now because their business is making enough so they could do that. Some of them are being asked to train other teachers on classroom management because they took the strategies that they learned from me and tweak them and make their own version of it. And now they are amazing at that. I get to see teachers who used to struggle with leaving at contract time now go to concerts and go travel over the weekend because they're not worried about all the work they have on Monday because they're already caught up. I have teachers who are deciding to start their very own businesses for the first time because they figured out how to make teaching easy. I've had teachers who have reached students that were considered hard students because they've learned what works best for them and how they want to manage disruptive behavior in a way that feels aligned with them. And they were able to make deep impacts with those kids because of what they have learned and what they have incorporated. And so with that being said, your desires were given to you for a reason, and it's possible for you. And the reason that you have that goal, you reaching that goal is going to benefit the world in some way. It's going to make the world a better place. So with that being said, the fifth thing is you've already been on the other side. Whenever I'm not sure how to get there, I have to let go of the how. So for example, I used to worry about how am I going to show up online and share what I have to say in a way that reaches others and teachers around the world. I realized I have already been on the other side. I have been done struggling with, reaching other teachers and getting my message out there. I have decided, there's a version of me that's already been through this. All I have to do is walk through it now and live through it and show up and do the work as it comes to me and the ideas that comes through me, and I will be on the other side of this. So how does future you look like? If you could have been on the other side, if you are on the other side of this already, what are you doing? What does future you look like? How are you acting? What do you feel? How do you carry yourself? What does your day-to-day look like? And lean into that and remind yourself what that feels like. And what would you be thinking, acting, and feeling if you are already on the other side? Last step is to step into the feeling of already being on the other side of this. We kind of talked about that, but you can do this a couple of ways. You can talk to yourself or imagine, just in your head, imagine what it would be like 1 year from now, a month from now, 2 months from now, whatever, already having achieved your goal. How would you be? What would you be doing? How would you be talking? What would you be doing on a day-to-day basis? One trending thing that's happening right now is if you type into ChatGPT all the things you want to achieve in really, really big detail, like not just list, but detail on what you want to accomplish in the next year, and you tell it to write as if you had already accomplished these things 1 year from now or however long, and have it create a story for you, and you read that, that's a great way to put yourself into the energy of already having achieved that thing. One thing I like to do, and I've recommended to my clients to do, is to write a letter to yourself 1 year from now. And I've done this a couple times, but instead of doing December of this year, do December of next year and write as if all your dreams and all your goals you accomplished this last year and how proud you are and what your day-to-day looks like. What are you wearing? What are you eating? What are you doing on a day? How do you feel? Who are you talking to? All the things, and write it as if it's happening now. And then you can either reread it every day until it comes true, or you can always put it on your desk and go back to it a year later and see how much you've actually accomplished in the last year. So those are different ways to step into the version of the impactful teacher. So as a recap, first thing, get clear on what you want. What is your version of the impactful teacher, and what does she look like? What is she doing inside and out of the classroom? Number 2, you are worthy of your goals because you are. Your desires are safe guidance. They were given to you because there's a version of you that's already accomplished it. Number 3, reaching your goals benefits the world. How does you getting what you want going to help benefit the world? How is it going to make the world a better place? Number 4, you already have been on the other side. If you had been and had accomplished this already, what would you be doing and feeling? And number 5, stepping into the version of, I've already done this. I've already accomplished this. This is what it feels like. This is what my life looks like. And this is how my life is now. And I forgot all about when I used to struggle with X, Y, and Z. So if you want help achieving your goals in the new year, I do have a program, the Impactful Teacher Bundle. And in regards to letting teaching be easy, I have a program inside that bundle, which is the Present Teacher Circle. You might have heard me talk about it previously, but that's the program where I take you behind the scenes and I show you how I let things like classroom management, planning, prepping, grading, communication, and creating my very own schedule on how letting teaching be easy in my classroom. So you can use these strategies on what I do, not as a have to. You don't have to do the things that I do, but use them as an inspiration, as a starting point. Like, hey, she's doing this. This reminds me I could do it like this, but different. And I want to try it like this. And creating your own chocolate chip cookie recipe, your own systems to automating your classroom and letting teaching be easy in a way that feels aligned and exciting and free and flowy and ease. In regards to in this program or in the bundle, I also talk about starting your new TPT business. This is something new I'm adding in, and I'm super excited about this, but I'm going to be showing you how I sold 68 products during my first 3 months of my TPT store from scratch by creating my very own TPT store. I do have a TPT store right now, but I kind of want to start another one. So I thought, why not go behind the scenes, show you exactly what I'm going to be doing, and create a side-by-side do it with me course where I create a course or I create a TPT store and I show you things like how I'm picking out who I'm helping, the branding and all of that, all the way to creating your first product and setting up your storefront, all the way to creating your bundles, all the way to sharing it with your community and showing them, reaching the people that need your resources or could use your resources, and having those people naturally attracted to what you're doing. And then the people that it's not resonating with, they just naturally fall away. And in a way that feels aligned and not salesy, because I know it can feel easy to kind of be worried about whether or not you're being too pushy, but in a way that feels natural to you and feels like you're just helping and you're telling people about how you can help them versus, oh, I need you to buy this now for me to be okay. It's different energies, and I can show you how I personally do that. And again, you can walk through the course with me. We're going to be doing live modules over the next month. I could show you what I'm doing step by step, and you can ask me questions along the way, and then you get access to the replays for as long as the program's around. But so you can take them as inspiration. You can look at what I'm doing, do it with me, use that as inspo, and leave the rest, and use what strategies I'm using and incorporating it and making it your own. So that's the starting your own. And by the way, in the program, I'm going to be talking about what I want to do and what I love doing, the work that I'm excited to do versus the work I have to do. So I'm going to model to you what it looks like as a business owner to walk through doing what you want to do versus what society is telling you you have to do to be a good, TPT business owner or whatever. I'm going to show you how I do that. The third thing inside of this bundle that I'm super excited about is my goal in this new year is to write a book. I'm going to write a book. It's going to be similar to the Present Teacher Circle, where I show you like how I personally run my classroom management, my planning, my prepping, my grading, and creating a schedule I love. But I'm going to write kind of in a book version, which I'm super excited about. So part of the Present Teacher Circle is going to be this bonus where it's going to be a book club. So essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you a chapter each month as I write it. So January, I'm going to be writing the first chapter. Those of you that are in the Present Teacher Circle, I'm going to send you the first chapter so you get to read it first. On top of that, so you essentially get to see the book before it's published. I have been talking with people on I'm going to be getting it into Amazon and then places. My goal is like Barnes & Nobles and Target and stuff like that. So not only that, but at the end when I publish the book, I'm going to give you a signed copy of the book, which I'm super excited about. Along with that, along the way, I'm going to share with you what I'm doing and how I'm writing a book. That way, if you decide, you know what, I want to start writing children's books or I want to start doing XYZ, I'm going to share with you who I'm hiring in regards to like my publisher or why am I spacing on the name? Editor, who my editor is going to be. I'm going to have you vote on things like the cover, the title, and I'm going to give you notes on what I'm doing exactly each month as I get ready to launch this book towards the end of 2020 or towards the end of next year. So if that's something you are excited about and you want to see how I do that, I would love to have you join us where I can, share not only the book before it comes out, but show you the process of writing a book before it comes out, which I'm really excited about. So over the next 3 days, I'm going to be putting all these 3 programs together for a discounted price as a bundle. So if you want to join all 3 of these, you can get all 3 of these over the next 3 days. So make sure to check out the community, watch your email, because I'll be sending you a link with a discount code for being a part of this community and part of this 3-day event. So that wraps up this whole 3-day experience. Thank you so much for joining me. I personally had a lot of fun, and I think I'm going to be doing more live events like this more often, which I'm super excited about. So I'm going to go ahead and stay on if you have any questions. Otherwise, I hope you have a fabulous day. Remember, we're stronger together, and I'll see you later, teacher bestie.